not illegal to record.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's what we're doing.
Yeah. Why are you taking my information down?
Because we have a nice little database.
Oh, good.
And now you're considered a domestic terrorist. So
For videotaping you? Are you crazy?
You heard it from their mouth. You are a domestic terrorist for taking videos. Hi again, everybody. It's now 5 o'clock in New York. In the span of just 1 year, ICE's much publicized and stated targets have gone from, quote, the worst of the worst to American citizens who dare to film their conduct. And these are not idle threats or isolated incidents. They are echoes of a promise made by Tom Homan earlier this month to create a database of those who impede ICE, a promise that they are increasingly able to deliver on, as ICE has obtained an alarming array of advanced surveillance technology, thanks to the massive funding bill passed last summer by Congress. Washington Post examined a DHS annual report and finds this, quote, ICE has wasted no time spending its war chest, buying new tools ranging from biometric trackers to mobile phone location databases, spyware, and drones, while loosening restrictions on how it uses some of these technologies. In recent months, ICE leaders, backed by top Trump administration officials, have asserted the authority to use all available tools to monitor and investigate anti-ICE protester networks, including U.S. citizens. Washington Post reports this, quote, ICE started using facial recognition technology on the streets over the past year. A new app enables ICE officers to immediately compare phone scans of faces and fingerprints they encounter in the field against databases containing individuals' immigration status and other biographical information. Some U.S. citizens have reported having their faces checked in real time by ICE or Customs and Border Protection. If all that weren't chilling enough, more audacious enough, more of a police state than we have ever experienced, ICE has also been using military drone technology to monitor the protesters out in the streets in American cities. Quote, one compact model purchased by ICE is advertised as being able to detect individuals from 7.5 miles away and identify them from 0.8 miles away. Many models are equipped with night vision and thermal cameras. ICE has been using small drones to monitor some protests over the past year. Its sister agency, U.S. Customs and Border Protection, also flew a much larger military-grade MQ-9 Predator over anti-ICE protests in Los Angeles over the summer. The U.S. Air Force has previously disclosed that it equipped some MQ-9 Predators produced by General Atomics with a Gorgon Stare system of hundreds of cameras that can track everything that moves across 40 square miles in high definition. It is not surprising, given all that the images of interactions between ICE agents and peaceful protesters in Minneapolis look more like something out of a military occupation or a war movie than any legal law enforcement activity on the streets of an American city being carried out against American citizens. New York Times reporters Thomas Gibbons-Neff and David Guttenfelder write this about what they saw and photographed while they were there. Quote, 2 centuries ago, Nicollet Avenue was a military route connecting St. Anthony Falls to Fort Snelling. Over the weekend, it became the stage for a violent confrontation between protesters and the government's military-like law enforcement operation in the wake of the killing of Alex Preddy, a 37-year-old Minneapolis resident. Nicollet Avenue is quiet now, but the city remains in a defensive crouch, unsure where the next battle will erupt. That is where we start the hour with some of our favorite reporters and friends. Atlantic staff writer Isaac Stanley Becker joins us from Minneapolis. Also joining us, former acting assistant attorney general for national security at the Department of Justice, Mary McCord. Isaac, you're there. Just tell us what you're seeing and reporting.
We're standing right now outside of Minneapolis City Hall. It's a tense moment here in the city. Tom Homan, the border czar, gave a press conference this morning in which he pledged that the federal government is not surrendering and really pressed state and local officials to cooperate more closely with the Trump administration and their crackdown here. I spoke yesterday with Governor Tim Walz, who was really just apoplectic about the state of affairs in his state and unwillingness, seemingly, at least thus far, of the federal government to withdraw these forces that state and local leaders say they do not want here and that are making their communities less safe. So it continues to be a really tense situation on the ground.
Isaac, I mean, the militarized sort of manners and tools that ICE has been described by protesters who have come face to face with them. But just in terms of covering the city, what is that like to see protesters in an American city being essentially surveilled, tracked, and confronted aggressively and violently, in 2 instances fatally, by American immigration officers?
Well, Nicole, here's one comparison that I think is telling. The Minneapolis Police Department has about 600 officers, and there have been 3,000 ICE agents in addition to other Border Patrol officers in this state, concentrated in the Twin Cities. So it's a stunning show of force, and that's not even to mention the type of gear and equipment they're using, which again has been, as you said, perfected in faraway countries on the fields of battle, and is now being turned against American citizens. Not just these 2 individuals who were shot and killed, but we've all seen these stunning images of the descent on elementary school pickup lines, on individuals' homes, where there are cries that ring out about children being in the house. So I think it's really terrorizing the citizens of this state.
Mary, let me ask you about civil liberties. I mean, how is any of this legal?
Well, I think a lot of it is not, Nicole. I mean, the clip you showed right at the top of the hour with an agent saying to somebody who was doing nothing more, at least based on what we could tell, than videotaping a federal official doing his job in public, saying that we've got a database on you, you're a domestic terrorist. First of all, First Amendment protected activity is not the basis and cannot be the basis for any valid law enforcement measure or enforcement. Now, violence is not First Amendment protected, but purely videotaping somebody, using your cell phone to record someone, a public official doing their job in public, is protected. And maintaining this database, that would violate the Privacy Act. You cannot, it specifically says, no records shall be maintained on the basis of First Amendment protected activity. So there are multiple things wrong with what we're seeing, but the use of force and the detention of people and arrest of people for engaging in First Amendment protected activity, it really looks like things that we've seen in other countries that don't have the kind of First Amendment rights that we do.
Well, it's the violation of civil liberties and protected speech, absolutely amplified or on steroids from technology. Let me read more of what they're able to do with technology. This is from the Washington Post. License plate readers use high-speed cameras to photograph cars and store that data in commercial or government databases. ICE officers can pull up a vehicle's movement history or search for all vehicles in an area over a period of time, narrowing it down by the car's color, make, or state of registration. Cell site simulators, also called stingrays, masquerade as cell towers. The devices, often mounted atop vehicles, are used in 2 ways. If officers already know the identifying number of the target phone, they can use the cell site simulator to look for it. They also can scan for all cell phones in the area. ICE has a deep trove of digital forensic tools that allow it to hack into locked phones and computers, recover deleted files, and read information in encrypted chats. These powerful tools traditionally were limited to the agency's investigations into terrorism, child smuggling, and other serious transnational crimes. But during the second Trump administration, leadership has ordered the shift of investigative resources across the agency toward the deportation drive. Why do you need to hack into people's encrypted chats to find a 5-year-old child? I mean, how inept are they that they need to use these terrorism tools to deport children?
I mean, this raises so many issues, right? I mean, there might be appropriate cases where this type of surveillance would be warranted. And even then, our Supreme Court, which is woefully behind the times when it comes to examining how technologies can be used to monitor a whole pattern of a person's life. But 7 years ago, they said that cell site location data, by which you can sort of monitor where someone goes place to place throughout the days and nights and weeks, that is something that requires a warrant, because it's a Chief Justice, actually, Justice Roberts, said that puts together such a picture of somebody's life that really invades their reasonable expectation of privacy. And that would be the case even when you were trying to investigate a much, much more serious crime. Here, in many cases, we're not even talking about a crime at all, right? We're talking about a person being in this country without having proper documentation, which is not criminal. It doesn't mean they can stay here. They may be removed from here, but it is not criminal. So the level of surveillance and technology that they're using, even if it could be valid in certain cases with certain parameters put around it, there's just nothing that justifies its use, either to find undocumented people, children, or to monitor those people who are engaging in First Amendment protected activity.
I mean, I think, General Hurley, it does usher in the question rather urgently: where are the people, Republicans namely, who were so apoplectic about any visa application that wasn't perfectly executed, and it should have been. It should always be. But the civil liberties of the American people are being trampled upon, and the only reason Republicans aren't shutting down the government is because they perceive the civil liberties of their political opponents as the ones being violated. But I wonder, and let me bring General Hertling in on this. He's joined us. What you make of the kinds of people who've been armed with these tools.
It seems hauntingly familiar, Nicole. I've just been listening to Mary, and she's exactly right in terms of the privacy. And what you said earlier about this is the kind of, or these are the kinds of pieces of equipment that you use in terms of haunting terrorists. Some of these things we used in combat when you're talking about cell phone towers and intercepting of terrorist conversations, but you have to have some type of admission that those individuals are the ones you're trying to seek. But the right to privacy, and you just made a comment about the FISA warrants. I'll go even closer to where we sit right now, and it was some of the senators and congressmen who were being called by the president on January 6th, and they were concerned and were awarded money for that, and all they were doing was tracking not the data, but who was being called. That was the only thing they wanted. These kinds of pieces of equipment are much more technologically advanced than any of that, and you can get a whole lot of private and personal data from it.
Isaac, I'm cognizant of you standing out in the cold, and I trust you to wave your arms and tell us if you need to go warm up. But the concerns that the governor has articulated to you in the Atlantic are that the violence could produce a national rupture. Explain his worries there on the ground.
I wanted to just add one point about this surveillance and investigation of some of the people engaged in this lawful protest and work of observation. I think it's important to note that there's a grassroots agitation among the president's MAGA base for this type of surveillance and monitoring and potential criminalization. Today at the Tom Homan press conference, there was a question from a right-wing influencer who was sort of egging the border czar on to state and to indicate that the federal government was going after these people. So I think that the president and the people around him are responding to political interests and political demands in their base. As for the governor, I think that he has just a really stark warning for the rest of the country about what's happening here. We've all seen these images, but his message to me was for people watching from beyond Minnesota, it's worse than you think. It's even worse than it looks. And not wanting to get alarmist here about historical analogies, but the way he put it to me was, is this Fort Sumter? Is this John Brown? Are we seeing the first warning shots of a kind of national rupture and internal armed struggle? Now, he said that he believes the restraint of the protesters, of his citizens, is what is going to hold us back from that kind of breach. But it was pretty striking language.
General Hertling, I saw you nodding.
Yeah, everything that's being said is absolutely true. I mean, there are the rights of expectations of privacy, the right that individual citizens who are not violating immigration law will not have their rights trampled upon, and we're seeing exactly the opposite. Having watched Mr. Holman's conference this morning too, what I was struck by was the fact that I don't think he got it, what the protests are all about. It's not the fact that immigration officials are trying to enforce immigration law, it's the way they're doing it. It is the intimidation and the approaches that they're having to normal citizens, even those who are, abdicating their right to freedom of speech and their right to protest. But even those are considered part of this roundup, and that is what makes this entire operation very questionable. Mr. Holman didn't seem to address any of that. He just said he was replacing somebody to try and get things right. But even during the press conference, he continued to talk about how they were going to go after people and never said perhaps not what we're doing, but the way we're doing it is what's causing so much trepidation among the citizens of Minnesota.
Mary, I guess my thought in covering this story now every day for almost a month is that it makes the conduct of the people of Minneapolis, St. Paul, and across Minnesota all the more extraordinary. I mean, as the reporting catches up with the incredible power, lack of symmetry, the incredible technological advances, the surveillance state that they're living under, the threats to their life, which has been widely publicized by the deaths of two people out there in the streets protesting for their neighbors in their community. Short of dying, there is a lot of risk of ending up in a database, of being surveilled, of being tracked, of being harassed, of being threatened. And all that's happening in broad daylight on camera.
It is, and I think it's just an incredible testament to the fortitude of the people in Minneapolis and St. Paul. And, you didn't even add to that the frigid sub-zero temperatures for weeks now, and people are out. And imagine, I'm sure that there are people who are being chilled from engaging in their First Amendment rights, but even with those people, the people who might say, I'm staying home because I'm worried about being attacked, assaulted, or even killed by ICE or CBP, even with that threat, look at how many people are out. Look at how many people are helping their neighbors, who are opening up warming stations for their neighbors, who are taking care of each other. And, that's where we're seeing, I think, some of the best of America. And that's the message that needs to resonate to the rest of us. The problem is, as you indicated, I can no longer say as an American that I feel safe going out and protesting because I don't know what the response is going to be, not just from DHS, but also from the Department of Justice and what they may do.
Right. And it's something that people have talked about throughout history and certainly over the last 15 months, that courage isn't the absence of fear. It's being out there and doing the right thing despite the fear. Isaac, thank you for being here despite the cold. Mary McCord and General Mark Hertling, thank you for starting us off today. When we come back, we'll put these questions about the militarization of Trump's immigration crackdown to the top Democrat on the House Oversight Committee. Also ahead for us are big questions about Donald Trump's health and wellness, and those questions seem to get louder by the day. Well, certainly every time he shuts his eyes and sleeps during his own meetings, or when cameras catch his bruised and made up hands, or when he takes the mocha test again for us and tells us how he aced it. Later in the hour, the reporter who set out to get answers about all those questions and Trump's health by interviewing Trump and his closest aides will join us. Why that interview with Donald Trump is raising even more questions on this topic than it set out to answer. And as we go to break, a reminder, as we've been discussing, courage from the people on the ground in Minneapolis is very much contagious. Here is the video version of Bruce Springsteen's just released new song. We played some of that song for you yesterday. The video's new. This is Streets of Minneapolis.
He told me that, well, look, Tim, we did this in New Orleans. We did it in Louisville. There's no problems. And I said, you didn't kill anybody in Louisville or New Orleans. And the operation here looks very different from that. And then he told me it was successful in Venezuela.
He talked to you about Venezuela?
He did. He did. I'm not sure what gave him the indication that at this point in time what's happening to my state that I'm interested in Venezuela, but he told me how well that went. Which really was strange to me was He saw an operation in Venezuela against a foreign nation in the same context he saw an operation against a U.S. state and a U.S. city.
I'm going to bring into our coverage Democratic Congressman Robert Garcia of California. He's the ranking member of the House Oversight Committee. Our panel is still here. Congressman, I feel like because of the breaking news, we go to you on everything. And you're often here to talk about the investigation into the Epstein files. But I do want to understand, even Tom Homan said today, if you don't like what you're seeing, go to Congress. What is happening behind the scenes to either address the surveillance state that ICE has operationalized against American citizens, something that as an ex-Republican, Republicans used to care about? We've heard nothing from them, or the idea that Donald Trump, even in a call with the governor, is, at least in his own mind, placing military operations in Venezuela in the same category as he places how his government acts in an American city.
It's all horrifying. And let's really think about what's actually happening right now. I think, first, we have this obviously critical, important vote that's going through the Senate right now. We should be incredibly forceful in our demand to ensure that there's actually real reforms that are actually moving forward, because ICE, in their operation, what's happening right now, that's just not acceptable to be happening in American streets. And ICE should not be functioning in the murder and involved in the murder, capture, kidnapping, and in some cases, I believe people are being essentially deprived of food and shelter in these detention centers. And so that right there is moving forward. That should concern us. As it relates to Tom Homan, I mean, look, let's be really clear. This is not some situation that somehow putting him in charge is going to improve, or that we should trust the situation. This is a person that allegedly accepted a $50,000 bribe in a fast food bag. This is someone that's gone around terrorizing Americans across the country. Someone that also takes orders directly through Stephen Miller and Donald Trump, and has caused enormous harm in the kidnapping of over 200 United States citizens, most of whom have no idea why they were put in a detention center on their way out. And so the situation right now in this country as it relates to ICE and to DHS is serious, which is why we're demanding that Kristi Noem be impeached and removed from office. And as it relates broadly to your question, Nicole, about surveillance, I mean, let's remember that Donald Trump has made ICE the single largest law enforcement agency at the federal level, even larger than the FBI and all the other agencies combined. ICE's budget has skyrocketed in a way that's it's essentially a military force. I mean, the budget of ICE today is now larger than most militaries across the world. And Donald Trump is trying to create his own military, police-like force on the ground, essentially to do as he commands. And we should be very concerned about that.
I guess my question is the military and the FBI have laws that would limit what they could do to American citizens. ICE has none of those laws. And I am old enough to remember when Republicans lost their you-know-what, that there were any efforts to sort of surveil or monitor anyone associated with the Trump campaign's contacts with Russia to see if Russia wittingly or unwittingly was meddling in the 2016 election, which they were. Something Marco Rubio and John Durham alike confirmed for the country. What do you make of the lack of any sort of legal predicate to surveil? And my understanding from the Washington Post reporting today is anyone that comes in any contact of ICE activity. So you could be at a protest, but you could also, as a lot of the people being ripped and having their seatbelts cut out of their cars on the way to doctor's offices or dropping kids off at preschool. A family with 6 young people in the car was hit with a canister of tear gas. I mean, there's all sorts of other people getting into contact with ICE's surveillance and violence who don't have any intention of being around the protests.
That's what people need to understand. Exactly your point. Right now across this country, ICE is collecting data and information, your information about your family, about your kids, some of whom are just maybe walking to school. Maybe if you're at a peaceful protest, they're collecting information about your neighbors, about folks that are working in our local small businesses. And it's largely going unchecked with no checks and balances in place. And ICE is now essentially Donald Trump's own personal military force, local military force that he's using in a way not just to cause harm and murder United States citizens, but also to essentially spy and survey the American public. And that's why this moment is so concerning, why I also believe that ICE can't be reformed as an agency. We can't make and improve ICE. Remember, ICE hasn't existed in this country for that long. Pre 9/11, we had most of these functions were essentially driven by the Immigration Service. And we need to get back to a place where our agencies are actually doing work that is humane. And whether it's Tom Homan, whether it's Kristi Noem, whether it's Stephen Miller, Bovino, they all have the same worldview where they view immigrants and people that are different or that are here working hard as less than human, as in some cases as evil, as domestic terrorists, as people that are somehow harming the rest of this country. And so what I tell people, particularly our United States citizens across this country, is right now ICE is surveying all of us, and all of us should be opposed to what's happening, every single American.
It's also wildly unpopular. I mean, what the hell is in the Epstein files that he's willing to drive his own approvals down to the low 30s?
I mean, look, it used to be that immigration was Donald Trump's strongest issue. And it's where he led in large part where he won the last election. He is now completely underwater on the issue of immigration. ICE is incredibly unpopular. What ICE is doing on our streets in Minneapolis and elsewhere, incredibly unpopular. For the first time, I'm talking to other more conservative voters, libertarian voters that I've known for a long time that have been supporters of Trump. They've finally turned on him. So I'm really hopeful that Republicans in Congress, we get back this week in the House especially, they realize that they've got to finally stop bending the knee to whatever Donald Trump wants and join us in reining in this terror that ICE is imposing on the rest of the country and holding Kristi Noem accountable. She should be impeached by the U.S. Congress, and we've got to ensure that Republicans join us on that.
Congressman Robert Garcia, thank you for joining us on a big news day once again. When we come back, big questions continue to swirl about Donald Trump's health and wellness and fitness for office. Some extraordinary new reporting is out today about Donald Trump's health, including an interview with Donald Trump himself. That interview raising even more questions. The reporter who conducted it is our guest. Stay with us. Donald Trump's obsessive insistence in telling all of us that he has, quote, perfect health has only fueled more questions and suspicions about how perfect it could be if he talks about it that much. And it's happening right now, today, in this news cycle. After Trump freed up his schedule when a New York Magazine reporter approached the White House to talk about this topic, Ben Terris will be our guest in a minute. He writes this, quote, when I arrived at the Oval Office in December, the president was standing next to a couple of men clutching pieces of paper labeled talking points. These are two doctors, Trump told me before I could ask a question. Let's sit for a couple minutes, Trump said. I hate to waste a lot of time on this, but if you're going to write a bad story about my health, I'm going to sue the ass off of New York Magazine, end quote. During the interview, according to the reporting, Donald Trump appeared to forget the word, I'm not making this up, and neither are they, Alzheimer's. He forgot the word when he wanted to use it in a sentence. While talking about his father, Trump, quote, pointed to his forehead and looked to his press secretary for the word that escaped him. Alzheimer's, Levitt said. And then Trump said, well, I don't have it. There's also the clearest evidence, the things we can see with our own hands, the things we witness when they let us see him, that something might be amiss. The bruising, the constant bruising on Donald Trump's hands. It's often covered with bandages or bad makeup jobs. From the reporting, quote, this is only from shaking hands, Trump said. Trump turned to the doctors, Captain Sean Barbarella, his lead physician, and Colonel James Jones, a physician's assistant with a PhD in health science. Quote, can you just verify that, he said. Quote, absolutely, said Barbarella. I've seen the president shaking hands for over an hour, end quote. Trump held up his non-shaking hand. Look, this one's perfect, he said. People say, what beautiful skin you have, end quote. No, they don't. Trump also offered bizarre defense for appearing to always fall asleep or to be sleeping during major public moments in his own office, an Oval Office event, his own briefing in Saudi Arabia with the Crown Prince, and again during a meeting with his own cabinet that he convened. For that one, Trump said, according to this new story, quote, "It's boring as hell. I have to sit back and listen, and I move my hand so that people will know I'm listening. I'm hearing every word, and I can't wait to get out," end quote. I want to bring in the Washington correspondent for New York Magazine, Ben Terris, who's bylined on this extraordinary new reporting. Also joining us, Charlie Sykes, who we're so happy to see, author of the newsletter To the Contrary. Ben, take me through what you're reporting.
Yeah, I mean, it was a totally wild experience. I set out to, do an investigation into Trump's health. It was a question that a lot of people had. Like you said, a lot of bruising, a lot of sleeping. He's had swollen ankles. There's been video of him seeming to limp. So, I wanted to know what was going on. And so I set out to write about him. I did not expect to be called into the Oval Office. I did not expect there to be 2 doctors from Walter Reed there when I got there. I also did not expect him to be holding papers that said talking points, although maybe I should have. Mm-hmm. And it was a totally wild experience. I mean, I felt kind of like I was a one-person audience for a play that was put on just for me, where the president and his doctors, told me that he was basically the healthiest man alive. It was kind of the end result of a series of plays that included members of his cabinet and, inner circle who all told me basically the same thing.
Well, I mean, I did PR, and you don't write talking points and bring in 10 people, 2 of them in the military, literally, who report to you through the chain of command for a story where you think the facts would present themselves in a way you would like. Let me just go through some of the performances that your investigation elicited. Marco Rubio, quote, "This guy is too healthy and too active." Stephen Miller, quote, "He can work harder and has a better memory and more stamina and has more energy than a normal mortal. The headline of your story should be the superhuman president." And let me just juxtapose that with some reporting in Politico yesterday from Slovakia's prime minister, who told EU leaders at a summit last week that a meeting with Donald Trump left him shocked by the U.S. president's state of mind. 5 European diplomats briefed on the conversation said Robert Fico was concerned about the U.S. president's, quote, "psychological state," 2 of the diplomats said. He used the word dangerous to describe how the U.S. president came across during their face-to-face meeting at Donald Trump's Mar-a-Lago estate in Florida on January 17th. What is your sense? Has anyone who doesn't work for Donald Trump or have reason to fear Donald Trump's now very much underway retribution campaign attested to?
Yeah, grind mode on, can't kill my drive. Turn the pressure up, I come alive. Grind mode on, I don't fold, I don't quit. Hunger in my chest, every beat I commit. Eyes on the prize, no sleep till it's won. World in my hands when the grind mode's on. Wake up with a vision, I'm locked on the target. Turn pain into fuel, I'm a flame, I spark it. No shortcuts here, I embrace every test. Pressure on my shoulders, still I handle it best. I was made for the climb, every loss, every scar. Built me in the steel, now I shine like a star. If the road gets rough, I just double my speed. Ambition on 10, I was born to lead. Grind mode on, I don't fold, I don't quit. Hunger in my chest, every beat I commit. Eyes on the prize, no sleep till it's won. World in my hands when the grind mode's on. They said limits exist, but I shattered the frame. Every wall in my path is just fuel for the frame. Discipline heavy, but my spirit is free. I don't chase success, success chases me. I'm the storm and the calm, I'm the rise, I'm the proof. Every bar that I drop is the grind in the booth. Blood, sweat, tears, that's the code I trust. I don't wait for the crown, I earn it, I must.